Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I'm your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about Predator Incursion by Tim Lebbon. This is from Titan Books, and it came out in September 2015. And it's book 1 of the Rage War, soon to be followed by book 2, which is Alien Invasion, and book 3, Alien vs. Predator, Armageddon. Now, I'm going to forego my usual synopsis because I'm not really sure the best way to give one. It's Predators, Colonial Marines, Weyland-Yutani, all of that mixed together. I'll get into the details of it as I talk about the book itself, as I review the book, I suppose. So anyway, first of all, Tim Lebbon, fantastic writer. So the writing in this is up to his usual standards. And this is very much a first book. It's not a complete story, I guess, is the best way to say it. There's a lot going on, and it's really setting up the next two books. What you have going on here is, first of all, you have Lieutenant Johnny Maines, who's a colonial marine. He's in a group, the Voidlarks. They're excursionists, and they're out on the outer rim of the human sphere, as it's called, which is basically as far as humans have traveled out into space. So Johnny Maines and his Voidlarks, they're out on the outer rim monitoring a predator habitat. And now the predators are known as a certain thing, and I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. I looked it up. I found many different ways that this is supposed to be pronounced, so I'm just going to go with Yautja, which was the one I saw, or at least as close as I can come to the one that I saw the most often, the Yautja. It's spelled Yautja, I believe. Yes. So Johnny Maines and his Voidlarks are watching a Yautja habitat. And occasionally they get called in. Like when we first meet them, they've been called to a space station, I believe it is, that has been attacked by two of the predators. So they go and they help out there, and then they go back and they're just monitoring this habitat. But there's a lot of crazy activity going on at this habitat, and they're trying to figure out why. Because the predators, the Yautja, are, as you know, if you're a fan, they're hunters. They're not really big on community, but there's a lot of Yautja living on this habitat, and they seem to be working together. And the Johnny Maines and his folks see a lot of ships taking off and heading into the human sphere. So you've got that going on. Meanwhile, you have Isa Pallant, who is a scientist, and when Johnny Maines and his Voidlarks went to the space station because it was attacked by two of the Yautja, they killed those two predators, and the bodies were sent to Love Grove Base, where Isa Pallant is, and she studies, her specialty is studying the Yautja. So she gets those two bodies, and she's studying them, trying to figure out what's what. She's her whole life dedicated to just studying the predators. Excuse me. So there's stuff going on there with her. Then you've got Lilia, who is an artificial being, you know, kind of like Bishop. And she works for the Founders. The Founders is a group of humans who left Earth and the human sphere a long time ago. They didn't like where humanity was going. They wanted to get away from everything. So they took off, and they've just been going as far away into space as they can. But they've decided they're going to return. And that's not a good thing. But Lilia, however you say her name, she works for them, but she realizes that the things that the Founders were based on have been twisted and corrupted, and she no longer wants to work for them. So she steals some information and heads back to the human sphere, hoping to save humanity from the Founders, who are coming back, and they're not happy. So all of this stuff is going on, and it's really interesting. Now, the first maybe half of the book, there's not a lot of Predator action. As I said, when we meet Johnny Maines, they're at this space station that's been attacked, but the Yautja are already dead. We're there for the aftermath. And then a lot of stuff, they go back to the habitat, they're watching that, and there is a big space battle when a bunch of the Predator ships take off from the habitat, and they go after Johnny Maines' ship. But even that, while it's interesting, it's very technical. I don't even know if technical. It's very quick. It's just they launch, like the Colonial Marines, the excursionists, launch missiles, and then it says such and such ship was blown up. Oh, we launched some more missiles. This ship was blown up. Not a lot. It's not a big dogfight or anything. Not that it's not a bad scene. It's very interesting. All of this is very interesting. You do have to pay attention to the dates. Each chapter will give you basically the month and the year, and it does jump back and forth basically within a few months. So something going on with Lilia actually will take place a few months before, say, what's going on with Isopalant, even though what you just read about Isopalant, that chapter takes place before the chapter you're about to read. Does that make sense? Just pay attention to the month and the year at the beginning of each chapter, because it kind of jumps back and forth just a little bit. Excuse me. But eventually, we get in some crazy Predator action. Before I get to that, I'm going to jump back and forth a little. Before I get to that, there's a bunch of sabotage going on within the human sphere. The people, not everybody has all the details. Really, nobody knows what's going on. But all of a sudden, things are being blown up. Space stations, spaceships, habitats, bases on planets. Just people are just blowing them up. We, the reader, have a general idea of why. And we know who's responsible, but the characters don't know what's going on. And they believe it's the Yautja, because while there have been rare attacks by the Predators within the human sphere, all of a sudden they seem to be coming more and more. It is called Incursion. So you've got this going on, this human sabotage. More and more of the Yautja coming in. So all of this is coming together. It's coming to a head, and wow, I don't want to give away too much, But I mean, it involves Weyland-Yutani, the 13, who are the 13, basically the 13 heads of Weyland-Yutani, and we get to know one of them, Gerard Marshall, who's another interesting. I mean, all the characters are very interesting. He's another one. It's interesting to see one of the heads of Weyland-Yutani as a main character and sort of get inside the mind of these people that I think have only been ancillary characters in the movies and such. Well, maybe the fourth Alien movie we get. I don't know. I haven't seen that one in ages, but we do really get to know this guy that works for the 13, or is one of the 13, and works for Weyland-Yutani, and I mean, we get a lot of background on him, and he's a major player in the events that are going on. The Colonial Marines, especially Johnny Maines and his group of Voidlarks, are really great characters. I like the stuff with them, the quiet moments as well as the combat moments, and they do. I guess the second half of the book, you really do get a lot more action going on. Not that at any point is the story boring, even before all the crazy Predator action happens. As the story's building in the first half, it's still very, very interesting. And as I said, it's setting up something huge. There are a few big things that happen in this book that I just don't want to mention. You really need to read it and find out for yourself. I try to make these reviews as spoiler-free as possible, and things slip through. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on. It's all very well written. It's all very interesting. And it touches on, for me, it had almost a feeling of classic science fiction. I tend to forget when I'm reading alien novels or Predator novels that they're still real science fiction novels, which may sound strange since they take place in the future, and most often they're taking place someplace other than Earth. But Tim Lebbon really touches on the expansion of the human race, and they have things called drop holes, which basically are wormhole gates, for lack of a better way to put it. It's to help with the expansion of the human race into space. You go through one drop hole, you end up, many, many, many light years away, coming through another one. They do have faster than light travel, but typically, I don't know. I always get the feeling, I think, more of a military sci-fi feel from an Alien or a Predator book, or almost a pulp feel. But I don't know, for some reason, while I was reading this, when he's really talking about the advancements in technology and where humanity's come from and where they're going, it just gave me sort of this, almost an Isaac Asimov kind of feeling when I was reading it. And it just really reminded me that this is true sci-fi, science fiction. Perhaps wrapped up in pulpish trappings, action-adventure trappings, but it really is true science fiction. Like the first Predator movie, yes, it's science fiction because it has an alien in it, but it's really more of an action movie. Even the second Predator movie, because that takes place on Earth, but this really pulled me into the science fiction of it. Classic science fiction of it. So that's something I enjoyed, and it was something I was reminded of that sort of just I hadn't thought of before. So that's something about the book. So I'm looking over here at my notes. I've covered Johnny and Isa Pallant. Again, not sure how you pronounce that. Again, a very interesting character. and she's our entry into Yautja society, because she's the expert. She's our eyes into this bigger world of the Yautja. Lalaya, or however you say her name, really, for an android, for lack of a better term, she's a really fascinating character. She's existed for so long, and she spent a lot of time isolated. The very first thing we read in the book is about her and this mission that she's on, and she ends up in a ship and just drifting through space for 30 years, longer? I can't remember exactly. A long time. Just her. And it sort of messes with her artificial brain and makes her even more human than she's already been programmed to be. So it's fascinating to see this artificial person change and grow. And she changes so much that she basically rebels, which one would think is impossible. But obviously, the androids in the Alien and Predator universe don't follow Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. But the Founders, very interesting group, and basically the catalyst for everything that's going on. Again, don't want to say too much. I will, let's see, the 13, Weyland-Yutani, always interesting stuff. A lot of different locations. A lot of, wow, I can't say some of these things. You've got to pick it up. If you're a fan of Tim Lebbon, you got to pick it up and read it. If you're a fan of the Predator and Alien franchises, you really need to pick it up and read it. Some of the best in that universe, that shared universe that I've read. And I will say one little, I guess, kind of spoilery thing. Essentially, throughout all of the Alien stuff, it's all about Weyland-Yutani wanting to weaponize the xenomorphs, and in this book, someone accomplishes that task. I'm not going to say, of all the diverse groups in the book, I'm not going to say who does it, but and that's, again, a big thing that's leading into the next book and then the third book. But wow. Interesting, very, very interesting. And I'm wondering where the second book is going to go. The Alien, is it going to go kind of back and show us some things that happened either before or simultaneously with the events of this book, or is it just going to move everything forward? And that's the sign of a good first book. It's really got me wondering what's going to happen. Man, I can't wait for the next one. I don't know what the release date is on books 2 or 3, but fantastic book. Whether or not you're a Predator fan, it's just good writing, good storytelling, great characters. So my rating, I will translate this for you because I wrote it in a foreign language. My rating is 5 out of 5. Now, I looked up the Yautja alphabet and found a number of different variations on it. And I compared, I looked back and forth, and they weren't the same. Quite a few of them were different. So, like, whatever the symbol for A was different in each one of these things I looked at. So I don't know if there's an official one. I chose the one that had numerals because I didn't want to write out the word 5. So what you have here, that's the symbol That's the symbol for the number 5. So 5 and 5 down here, and then it's O-U-T O-F. So 5 out of 5 is what I have written in the Yautja language, whatever you want to call it, their alphabet. And just like in English, my handwriting, my penmanship is terrible. So, but 5 out of 5, definitely. Just as a Predator novel, as the first novel of a trilogy, as simply a great story. It all comes together. It all works. It keeps you entertained the entire time. It keeps you guessing, and it really will pull you in and get you to anticipate the next 2 books, which is its job, I guess. That's the job of the first book. I mean, I have read the first book in a trilogy or a series that just have left me feeling blah, and I didn't care what was coming next. But I want to know what's going to happen to the characters. I want to know what's going to happen when the founders get back. I want to know what the 13 and Weyland-Yutani, how they're going to twist things to their own advantage, because it's Weyland-Yutani. I want to know, and I have to wait because I don't know when the next book comes out, but I definitely recommend this one. So obviously 5 out of 5. So if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. And I will have a link for the book in the description below. And I think that covers it. So, this has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.